But that's been the MO since we met. Like, just put it out, grow.
Yeah.
You know, put it out, put it out, grow. Put it out, grow. And so I think I'm just now like getting to like the top of the parabola. You know what I mean? And I'm really happy with the work that we did too.
I'm Charla Larston. I've been a TV writer for almost a decade, but it wasn't that long ago that quitting my day job and moving to Hollywood was nothing but a pipe dream. After lots of failures, many mistakes, and many lessons learned, I've now written for 7 TV shows, 2 features, and sold 3 TV pilots. I've done all this through imposter syndrome, burnout, and with zero roadmap. On the Working Writer podcast, I pull back the curtain on breaking in and teach screenwriters and creatives how to thrive both personally and professionally. Without further ado, let's get to work. What's up, party people? Welcome to another episode of the Working Writer podcast. Today's episode is a doozy, homie. You know why? Because I finally landed Phil Augusta motherfucking Jackson. Now, if you've been a listener of this podcast, it's still a new podcast, but somehow I've managed to mention Phil in no less than 3 episodes for sure. He's been such a huge influence on me and on so many other writers. And because Grand Crew was a really seminal show for me, working on that show was a wonderful experience. It was the first time I was a supervising producer. I had a Black showrunner, which doesn't happen all the time. And then on top of that, I had a really wonderful showrunner who happened to be a friend of mine, which there were so many things going on that show. You know, it was like a majority Black staff. It was a wild ride. It was a Black cast. It's like, who gets to work on shows like this? Who gets to work with all these funny people? It was really, really an incredible experience. And I've been absolutely dying to talk to Phil because not only is he a wonderful comedian, he's a wonderful showrunner and an excellent scriptwriter, he's also a motherfucking rapper who has a really good rap album, actually. It is a surprisingly good album for a comedian to come out with. And I was just really excited to talk to Phil. I'm so glad he finally made it to the podcast. I'm excited for you to check it out. Here's my episode with Phil Augusta motherfucking Jackson. Uncle Phil Augusta Jackson.
Phil, yeah. I mean, I am in the building. Uncle. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't actually know that, but we did have an Uncle Phil joke in the Grand Crew room. So we sure did that Uncle Phil convention. There we go. Yeah. So you're officially Uncle Phil. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm not sure where to look. I'm looking at you. I'm just looking at you.
You should just look at me.
Okay. Yeah. It's weird.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Is it?
No, you're not weird.
No. But is this because you can just look into the camera?
Outline. Okay, yeah. Is this weird?
You're right. That is weird. Yeah, because I actually am just looking directly at you on my screen. Yeah. So, and I feel like that's better. I'm looking at
you right now. How does that look?
It looks like you're looking at me. So
okay, great.
That's how. Does it look like I'm looking at you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Dope. Okay, great.
Man, we're off to a great start.
We're off to a wonderful start. All of this is staying in the podcast, not getting edited. Wonderful. Phil, I've talked about you on several episodes now.
Really?
I've talked about you with D. Phil, David Phillips.
That's my man right there.
I know that's your man. I've talked about you with Rekha Shankar, who was recently on the show.
Love Rekha.
I've talked to you about you with Mr. Dan Gore, who was also on the show.
That's the homie. Absolutely.
That's the homie. So it's about time that, I get some answers.
Yeah. You did say it was good
answers. 100%. So here goes. So Phil, this is what it is. It's like, I feel like you're an international man of mystery. That's for real.
Really?
It's like, I feel like we all know you, but it's like, do we know Phil? Like, who is he? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's from Philly. We know there was some marketing in his background at some point. Yeah. Now he's a bona fide rapper. It's like, well, who are you? I want to hear your story. I want to hear how you went from Philly to marketing and then how marketing turned into comedy and TV.
Sure. Yeah. So, I grew up in Yardley, Pennsylvania, just about 30 minutes northeast of Philadelphia. First generation born in the States. My parents are both from Jamaica. Um, and yeah, I went to the University of Virginia. Growing up, I was always super, super interested in entrepreneurship and business. Even to this day, I have aspirations outside of entertainment just to like be a business person. And I think I've had a bunch of ideas over the years that I've just thought about like starting different things. So all that to say, I went to the University of Virginia and studied in the undergraduate school of business there, McIntyre School of Commerce, and concentrated in marketing and management. Got a job in New York in 2006 as a junior strategist, which is like a pretty competitive discipline to get your foot into. But I had a really good internship during my junior year of college that got me the job offer. I was going to go to law school, but decided not to. And yeah, around 2008, I was like, I would go to movies and then talk with my friends and be like, oh man, I could have been in that movie. Oh man, oh, you see that TV show, man? I should have had a part in that. And then at a certain point, my friends were like, shut up and like do something about it. So I started taking an acting class in 2008 at Michael Howard Studios around like 25th Street on like 7th Avenue or so, I think. I had a wonderful instructor named Naomi Thornton, and then there was this guy named Jed who would bring in these plays at the end of class. This was a scene study class. And if you wanted to stay longer, it was a 7 to 10 class. If you wanted to stay longer, you could stick around and read Jed's plays. They were like 1-2 page plays like for kids. But the thing I took away from it was, oh, if I start writing and bringing in stuff, people can read my stuff after class. And so, about 6 weeks later, I had a 1-act play. And then ended up running that play off Broadway at the 13th Street Repertory Theater for about a year. Produced that with my roommate at the time, Jeff Thibodeau. Then I started taking improv. And so at this point, I'm climbing the ranks. So years are going by now in New York. And basically,
you're working full time in marketing while you're doing all of this?
Very full time.
So you have a real full time job and you're doing all of this on the side. All right.
Yeah. And then in 2009, August 1st, 2009 was my first improv class. And that kind of changed everything. I really fell in love with the art form, and met like-minded people, found my kind of, my tribe to grow with, in a lot of ways. And, and then by 2013, I was a vice president at Publicis, the advertising agency. So I was pitching new business. I had clients like Hilton, work on Procter & Gamble stuff. I was in Cincinnati once, twice a month, and doing improv like every night of the week, and coaching and teaching. So I just didn't sleep when I was in New York.
Damn.
And then I got Key and Peele at the end of 2013, and then I just hit 10 years here in LA. So once I got that first writing job, I was fortunate enough to just go back to back in a bunch of rooms, and then then we got to jam on Grand Cru. I was 100%. In one of your shorts in New York. I was in one of your shorts.
You were literally in my very first ever sketch ever.
I remember I
was so brand new.
Yeah, I remember having
I was wearing a chicken suit.
You're wearing a chicken suit. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I knew you. That's when I met you, or maybe we had met before that. But that's when we like actually.
I don't know. Such a long time ago. Yeah.
It was around that time I got to know you. And then I just I knew you were doing your thing. I knew that you had written on a bunch of shows. And so once I got my show, it was kind of a no-brainer. And that's why I hit you up. Isn't that crazy how that works?
It's insane how it works. And it kind of like worked like that for a lot of the people in the room, right? Like it was a bunch of people that you had just known in the scene that you,
absolutely,
you got your show, and we were fortunate enough to be a part of that. I think all of us has like a dream team that we want to hire when we get our show, and so it made me really, really happy to be a part of that. And I definitely want to get to Grand Cru, but I feel like I kind of want to jump into your business mind for a little bit, because I think that's a really unique thing to come from, to be so deeply steeped in marketing to come into TV with, and so like as I've started working writer, like this podcast, the things that I'm doing like behind it, like I'm doing a course behind it or whatever, I started learning about marketing whether I like to or not. And what I didn't know about marketing was that the perception of it is that it's really just like kind of getting people to buy stuff. But the actual practice of it is so much more scientific than I could have ever imagined. Like
Yeah.
there's so much technical shit going on behind the scenes about,
Yeah.
well, like when it comes to targeting ideal customers, when it comes to all of this actual technical stuff that you have to do. And so like the more that I'm learning about it, the more it's making me interested in like what your perspective is about being a creator in television
Hmm.
with this like amazing marketing background that you have.
Yeah. So I mean, I think from the at a basic level, like the nuts and bolts of it, I think uh, outside of the discipline itself, I think working in advertising for 7.5 years and being kind of a higher level person by the time I left there just taught me like the discipline of like treating it like a job. Like, and I think not that everybody goes into a writer's room thinking that's going to just be like, fun and games and stuff like that. But I think when I went into a room, I was like, oh, I was working in advertising literally this past Friday, and now it's Monday at Key and Peele. I'm gonna show up an hour early. I'm gonna observe my surroundings. I'm gonna ask the right questions. I'm gonna make sure that I'm treating this like a job. You know what I mean? It was the dream, but I was like, oh, this is like this thing about trying to be funny and write these funny sketches is like a very serious thing that I'm going to take seriously as if it were advertising. So I think at a nuts and bolts level, I was just like, oh, this is a job. I am here to do a job and learn how to do it well. I think as far as like the actual discipline itself, it's interesting because I think each show that you see on TV, it's like when you pitch a show, it's like who is it for? Why does this show need to exist? These are all questions that you ask when you work with brands, and as a brand strategist, my whole job was to find insights that people can relate to that go beyond what the product actually does. And so, you could be talking about toilet paper or Dayquil, but it's not about wiping your ass or getting better from the cold. It's about it's bigger. It's about what it that allows you to say about yourself and allows you to do, as stupid as it sounds. And I think in TV, I think in sketch specifically, it was really helpful because sketch is all just insight. Insights is like, instead of insight, it's the funny thing. What is the idea? It's the game. And so I think that helped me a lot with sketch. I really love sketch, and I think part of the reason why sketch came pretty easily to me was because every single day I was either conducting focus groups, doing quantitative analysis to figure out cohorts of people that and why they will or won't react a certain way to certain stimulus, to actual language and stuff that I had to write. And so I think my advertising background helped in that way. And I think it was a thing that I was already good at, but doing it professionally definitely honed those skills. And then when I ended up getting in a room, it's like, oh, we're blue skying. Blue skying is a thing that I would literally do. I would fly to Cincinnati and help host these events where we're blue skying ideas for this thing called ZQL that is a product that exists now, and so it a lot of the skills and requirements were transferable, and I carried over into how I acted in the room and how I ran the room too. Sorry, it's a long answer, but
I love it. That's what I want. I want long answers. I love what you talk about taking it seriously, and we've talked about this before. Like because I feel like I love coming to you for just straight up business ideas or just like grinding ideas, because you're always on the grind and you just really clearly love what you do, and you bring a lot of energy to it, and you bring a particular energy to it.
Thank you.
And I love what you said about taking it seriously, and the way that I kind of look at that is like, because a writer's room is very much a job. It's very much a job. You really are going in there 9 to 5, and there is this perception that it's like super fun, and that it's like or fun in a way that it's not a job, but it's very much a job.
It's like a job. It's a job. Like a job. Shit is a job, dog.
That is a job, dog. So, but I kind of transfer that over to not just the actual structure of a 9 to 5 writer's room, but also your creativity in general. Like taking your creativity really seriously and approaching your creativity as if it is a job, because that's also something that I think that you do. Do you have like structures? Because from my perspective, you're putting out a lot of things. You were doing a show. You had an album out already when Grand Crew
Mm-hmm.
started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like, I'm just wondering like what your work life looks like. Like, how are you getting things out?
I get pretty restless,
Mm-hmm.
so it makes me feel good to finish stuff. And in New York, like in that time when we were first getting to know each other back in the day, when we were both figuring out our voices as writers, as comedian people. Um, I don't even know who instilled this in me, but it was like I wasn't booking anything. Maybe this is what I wasn't booking anything, and when I looked around, the most successful people were all just making shit on their own. You know what I mean? Like Abby and Alana, where Broad City was like a web series that we got to see that build like in real time. And, and so I think that on top of being a restless person, on top of I think just naturally, I like to be creative. Have just kind of been that way. And I've always had a lot of interest that, I'm not the type of person that gets up at like 6 a.m. every day and has to write 5 pages. Like it's not that. It's kind of whatever feels exciting in the moment, So back in the day, I was taking an acting class. I see this guy Jed writing stuff. Ooh, I like that. Now I wrote a play. Oh, I started UCB. Okay, I'm really liking this UCB thing. I'm not on a Herald team or a weekend team or anything like that, but all the best people that I see that I admire all have their own little team. So I'm gonna start my own little team. And so I think I just observe my surroundings and follow the fun and follow what excites me and don't do shit that doesn't excite me. And so, when it comes to music, it's like, that's just a really nice release. I get a lot of joy out of that. I don't have to take network notes or anything.
Wonderful.
It's just a pure creative expression. And so that's what it is. And then, enough time goes by and then I'm like, oh, I think I'm done with this thing. And, I just kind of either release it or send it to reps or whatever. But I don't know. I got a board that you can't see
Mm-hmm.
that is basically has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and those 5 things are like things that I want to do this year. One's a movie, 2 are movies, 2 are TV shows, and 1's music. And so in that way, I kind of have like a loose idea, but that's all subject to change depending on how I'm feeling and depending on what happens throughout the year. So it's a mix of like having goals and objectives, but really just being excited by creating and just making sure that I do something creatively minded every day. And sometimes that just means taking a walk and thinking about it too.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. How likely is it that you will finish the 5 things that you have up there? And is it like are they
yeah,
all things that you are determined to finish, or like they are finished if they get finished?
they're all actually pretty far. Like I'm going to do them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to do
And
them.
did you just start, or are all these things from last year? Like, are they from 2024?
Right. So like the first one here is my album that I'm going to release this year. So I've been working on that for a
Okay.
couple of years now. So,
Oh, wow.
but I put the finishing touches on it at the end of last year. But now it's mixing, mastering, figuring out how to market, digital marketing, all that stuff, and so it's getting those pieces in order. The other one is like a development. The other 2 are like a development thing, and one was a rewrite of a movie that I've had the idea for this movie since 2015, and then I wrote a draft of it in 2022. Tried to write another draft at the beginning of last year, and then I finally was like, I'm going to take a class. I'm just going to take a class. So I took a class with this dude, Tim Neenan, who's like a UCB guy, and
Yeah.
got a second draft of this movie, and I'm so excited about it. So yeah, it's all moving along. But these are all things that have been in the ether for like. None of these are just ideas that I started this year. None of them
Right.
are.
Right.
but
All right. Fantastic.
these are the in the moment things that I'm like, oh, it's been literally years for almost all of these.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. And weirdly, I'll probably add 1 or 2 things as the year goes on. Oh, I got this idea. So now I'll start
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it. But if I have the seed of an idea this year, it probably won't come to any kind of fruition until 2 years from now, which is like so weird to think about. It's kind of, it's intimidating to think about it that way. But there's always something in the mix, which is a nice feeling. So
I love that. That's how I operate too. And I actually I feel comfort knowing that I do the fact that I wrote it down and I'm intent about finishing it or developing it means that there's no timeline on it. I can finish
Yeah.
it when it's finished, which
Yeah.
is
What is so?
true.
What is your process then? Like, how do you? What do you?
I mean, I don't have a cool board. I use Asana.
Okay.
Some people pronounce it asana, which I think is nuts.
Yeah.
But I use some sort of organizational tool, whether it is asana, whether it's literally just my notes app,
Yeah.
whether it's like my notebook, but somewhere the ideas that are active for me are written down and they just get worked on
Yeah.
incrementally as they get worked on. Like working
Yeah.
writer, I wanted to do it probably for a year before I actually did it. It actually
Cool.
started as something that was like a financial education thing, like a personal finance thing,
Oh,
because
cool.
I was super it started for several reasons. Like part of it was that I went through a really bad burnout, and I felt like I really wanted to educate other creatives so that they don't go through the same kind of burnout. And
Yeah.
then I also like went through a period where I was like, I basically like my income didn't stamp out the fact that I was terrible with money. And so I was
Mm.
just like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know anything about managing my money. I really want
Mm-hmm.
to educate myself. And then when I educated myself, I was like, I really want to talk to other
Yeah.
writers and creatives about educating themselves, because I feel like it can, money is such a stressful part of being a creative,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and I'm just like, it really doesn't have to be like that. And as a matter of fact, so many Americans are just not educated about personal finance. And
Yeah.
I'm just
It's
like,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. So it started small and it became something of just me following like what I want to, I guess, contribute to the world, which is kind of how I always think of what I'm doing, is like, what am I contributing?
Yeah.
What point of view, what voice, what am I doing? And that's really how I do it. Like I write it down somewhere. One day I'll have
Yeah.
like a cool board, I think. Right now I'm
Yeah.
sharing an office with my husband, but
Yeah.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
You got to do what you got to do.
So I wanted to
That's
ask you
great.
about, yeah, I wanted to ask you about becoming a showrunner, because I'm
Yeah.
going to be honest,
Yeah.
Phil, uh, there was a weirdness about going from being your friend to being your employee,
Let's talk
because
about it.
it's like,
Okay.
let's talk about it.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get into this, man.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, yes, but go ahead. So, I got so
So,
many, yes,
yeah.
questions and
So
thoughts.
it's insane because
Yeah.
one, it was one of the most thoughtful and intentional experiences that I've had on a show.
Hmm.
I thought you were one of the most thoughtful and intentional showrunners that I've ever
Thank
worked
you.
for,
Thank you.
because you were super intentional. Like when we started the room, about telling us how the room was going to work, what the hours were going to be, what you expected from us. Like,
Hmm.
like you just made us so comfortable. You made us so like, welcome, and you created an atmosphere where it was like everyone is welcome to be themselves and welcome to contribute anything and everything I want to hear from you. So
Absolutely.
that was fantastic. But I also was just like, ugh, like, could I be a showrunner to my friends?
Yeah.
Like that would be,
Yeah.
I think I could do it, but like watching you do it in real time, I was just like, it definitely was a shift. It was just like, because as much as I have known you for a decade or whatever, there's just this thing that happens as soon as I work for you
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's a
And
vibe, right?
yeah, and it's like, it's not even something that I'm trying to do. You're not trying to do anything. You were super chill. I was just like, I wonder if Phil is okay with like, does Phil feel this?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to be cool, but I'm like, hey, you're my boss. So
Yeah.
that's how it was. So what was like for you?
All right. So, you know, I so many thoughts. So it was it one, thank you for saying all those kind of things about how I ran the room. I think I was fortunate enough to be the jobs I had leading up to Grand Crew were all shows that I was already a huge fan of. So my resume, you look at my resume, and those are shows that I was watching and was already a fan of. And then when I got to these shows, I learned so much behind the scenes. And my goal was always to take the best pieces of every room that I've been in And when I got my own opportunity, the goal was to take the best of those rooms and let that be my room, and then put my own touches on top of that. And so um, I came in with that plan, and it's nice to hear that it was executed as it was intended to be, as it was intended to be received. That being said, there are so many aspects of being a showrunner that you just don't really get to know until you're just in the thick of it. And I think one of those things is the dynamics, just the interpersonal dynamics. Now, look, if I had hired a room of people, I knew everybody in the room prior, and maybe season 2, Novi, but even Novi, I knew through. I knew Novi. I'd met her a couple of times. She's
Okay.
because I knew the least, but I still knew who she was and knew that she was like a baller. But even if I had hired a room of people I didn't know, I think there is there's an undeniable status that you just
100%.
can't there's no way to wash it off. And no matter how much I say, hey, it is gonna hear the hours, say whatever you want to say. Truly, I'm here to listen. We're in this together. I'm still the boss.
Yeah.
and you can't, and that's just what it is. But then I think about my time on every show that I've been on. That's always the dynamic. It just feels weird to be that person. I work with Jordan and Keegan and Ian and Jay were they were like a four-headed monster on Key and Peele. Those guys were different than us. They were the EPs. They were different than us. On Survivor's Remorse, Mike O'Malley, who I'm really close with. He was in an episode of Grand Crew in episode 207. We're homies now, but that was my boss. You know what I mean? Like, he was cool. We would joke and stuff, but I was like, I'm joking with the showrunner.
Yeah.
Go down the line.
Yeah.
Dan Gore,
100%.
Prentice, Issa. It can be like a little bit of a lonely feeling, to be honest with you, because even in a room as dope as Grand Crew with all those people who are phenomenally talented, handpicked, and I was so happy with everybody, it's still there's still conversations that I'm not privy to. There's still things I as the leader can't just be saying shit. I'm in charge of keeping the morale where it needs to be, because I believe to make comedy, the room needs to be warm, and so there are a lot of conversations that the room's not privy to, that I'm having. There's a million things happening that have nothing to do with breaking story or the script that we're on, that are just logistical, production, casting, so many other things that occupy the mind space, that I definitely felt that shift. And it was especially interesting to experience that, knowing that it's like, oh, I know everybody in here personally, And so I always knew that there were like bound to be conversations that I wasn't going to be a part of. And honestly, I think that's good. Like, I should not be a part of some of these conversations. You need to go vent about how hard it is to break a story, and how I'm spinning my wheels and I can't make a decision yet. You got to do it.
Which didn't happen. Yeah.
It happens sometimes. All
right.
It happens sometimes, but like, those are things that you just I need to not be a part of. But I think it is interesting. It was an interesting dynamic because I did know everybody. But I would do it again the same exact way if I had a chance to.
I love it.
It was pretty dope.
I love that so much. Do you feel like you've changed at all since that position and that experience?
Yeah, I mean, my gray hairs are busting now. I mean, you see that? I just shaved my beard, but man, my gray. In 2019, when I was on Insecure, I was a co-EP on Insecure, and beard was big, thick, black. I start showing season 2 of Grand Crew, and season 1 of a hangout show, it's like just getting people to fall in love with the characters. Season 2, I was like, let's go. Like, we have the pieces set. Let's really knock this out of the park. And so I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to just make the show, to just grow the show as you're supposed to. But my beard started to lock in season 2 because I just wasn't sleeping and I couldn't really take care of myself, and I got a ton of gray hair. So physically, it is a pretty demanding thing, especially when you're on the network timeline where you're writing and filming at the same time. So in that way, I think I'm different. I also think I'm a a far better writer just by virtue of doing those 2 seasons of Grand Crew. Like it was I was ready for it, but it was also, my first time doing that. And so there are um and Dan was a great EP, so I could lean on him to, if I was stuck on a story, just to get like 5-minute pitches I could float to the room. Like he was very much there for me in a very supportive way without, and he wasn't in the room every day. You know what I mean? So it was like, he really was like, you let me know when you need me. And I thought that was phenomenal. But I think as a writer, I've grown. I think as a leader, I think all of it really, and just really experiencing what all the things that you need to balance when you're show running, I think has made me a better producer. It's like a master class, really, uh, yeah. So in that way, I think creatively, I'm, wait till the next joint. Like it's gonna be
I love
like,
it.
but that's been the MO since we met. Like just put it out,
Day
grow.
one. Yeah.
Put it out,
Yeah.
put it out, grow, put it out, grow. And so I think I'm just now like getting to like the top of the parabola. You know what I mean? And I'm really happy with the work that we did too. So it's like, um, yeah, I don't know. That's how I think I've changed.
I love it.
Yeah.
Are you ready to join hundreds of writers and creatives learning how to take their lives and careers to the next level with the Working Writer newsletter? Then go to theworkingwriter.com/join and sign up to get the Working Writer newsletter straight to your inbox. And now, on to the show. So, now that you've been a showrunner, I'm
Yeah.
wondering, have you had time to reflect on, hey, this was what I found to be super helpful that writers did in the room that like really helped me as a showrunner.
Yeah.
And then if you could talk to also what wasn't so helpful, like,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, like just to give us
Yes.
a sense. Mm-hmm.
So, I think there's the macro stuff and then there's the micro stuff. I think macro is like things in the room that everyone could do that I found really, really helpful. I'll just start there. The macro stuff is just pitching. Like I said this at the beginning. Like, guys, I just need you to say it. Just say it. Because sometimes I need to hear what you think is the dumbest shit for me to get to the thing that we're trying to solve for. So really, and that's the thing I had to learn even when I was in advertising. When I would have performance reviews, they'd be like, Phil, you're really smart. You do really, really good work. We feel like you sit on your ideas and try and come up with the perfect thing to say. When we're with these clients, we need you to just say it. Just say it. You belong here. you are smart and you are capable. So just don't feel like it has to be perfect. And then as soon as I got over that, boom, we're off to the races. And that was in advertising, to go back to your, first question about those
Mm-hmm.
transferable skills. So I think in the room, and sometimes you can't avoid it. It's like we've been talking for hours and there's just like silence and you can't help that sometimes. But like, I know I can speak for myself, even in the writer's room. It's the thing I had to grow into, where it's like, sometimes in that silence, someone does have something to say and they're just afraid that it's not enough. You know what I mean? And it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
try to stress this. It's like, just say it. Say anything. I mean, don't say anything, but like, you know what I mean? But like, be on topic and shit. But like, just the willingness to be vulnerable, I think is a writer's room at its best. You know what I mean? Especially with the show like Grand Coup, where we're like, yeah, like we're talking about it's a very, I think, shiny show and fun and poppy show, but like, we would talk about like eating ass and like different things that are kind of, topics that, are sometimes challenging to talk about, and other times just like from a story perspective, just like, oh, what turn needs to happen. So we would talk about it all, and it would just really help when the room felt empowered to just let it out. I think that's the biggest thing, I think, for me. At a micro level, I think it varies by position. So someone like you, a high level person in Grand Crew, like I I think something that you did really well, and honestly, it was like a lot of it is like, I like to compare it to basketball. I'm like the GM, where I'm like, okay, this person, everyone needs to know how to play basketball, but people have strengths in different areas. So like for you in particular, it's like, oh shit, she's really good with jokes. She's really good with rewrites. Those are two of the things off top, and she can pitch because you've been doing it and you obviously know how to pitch. But like you are a person where I was like, oh, I could put Charlotte in a rewrite, and I know that this rewrite is going to come back in a place where it's far along where it's not like I'm going to have to start from page one. Do you know what I mean? I could throw you in a punch up room and I know that the punch up's going to come back like really, really good in a way where now I can go get, 203 down the road while you do 202 or whatever. So for someone in your position, it's, I think, figuring out how to contribute to the machine at a high level. But there were other high level people that I would say their strengths were different. There are people in the room at your level, like supervising co-EP level, where it was like, oh, this person is a blue sky. Let's figure out what this episode could be, which is a very, very different skill and also a very useful skill. And again, not that you don't do those things or aren't capable of those things, but for the alchemy of our room,
for the team dynamic.
I was like, for this team dynamic, I was like, this is what, when in doubt, if you're asking me where I'm going to put people, if we have to like get an episode done in like 2 days, I know that's what I'm using Charlotte for. You know what I mean?
And mind you, because you have been my boss, as you have been saying that, I've been like cringing inside.
Oh, really?
Like, why? Because I'm like, what is Phil going to say? Obviously, like, I know we had a great time there, but this is what I mean about that boss dynamic. It's like,
yeah.
But
you
go ahead.
You immediately made an impact on the show. Immediately. That's why I gave you the first episode after the pilot,
which was nuts. Great.
And then so for higher level, it's like, how do you contribute to keeping the machine going at a high level? So it's rewriting, it's leading punch up, it's leading story breaking, and whatever else under the sun that we need to get done. Mid-level and lower, I think it's really just about listening and understanding the assignment in that moment. And that's it. Pitching when we need to pitch on this particular thing, pitch on that thing. If you don't distract, which is, I think, sometimes the things I don't like are when we've already
let it out.
Yeah, when we've already yeah, for sure. When I've already made a decision, because I don't make any decision about the show without the room, because that's what the room's for. And if we're rewriting post table, I don't want to hear about how you don't like the story that we're filming in 2 days. I don't. At that point, it's done. Like, don't do that. Like retroactively, like it's not changing now. Like this is a multi-million-dollar machine. I'm doing the best I can. I have consulted with the room. Do not do that. It's just yeah. If there's nothing that can be done, I don't need to hear about what you wish we would have done. It's like, that's when I start to feel like, wait till you get your show. And then you make that version of it. Do you know what I mean? But leading up to that, by all means, if that's the conversation we're having, which story moves to make, what should we do? With the love story triangle, all this different stuff. That's the time to do it. And wherever we net out, trust that I've heard everything. Like repitching, I think sometimes is can be good, because sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah. I did forget about that. Yeah, let's keep that in mind. But there's a point where it's like, no, I heard you. Don't repitch. Don't repitch. Especially when the repitching is like, it feels like it's like, this is what we should be doing. Because, you know what I mean?
All right.
Yeah. And so I think those, I mean, that didn't happen a lot in Grand Crew. Mm-hmm. And I think in the times that it did, it just was a function of being green, Yeah. And so I think that's a thing that's very easy to learn that's an easy thing to undo. Right. And so again, I loved our room. I thought, it was really, everybody was phenomenal. And I now being on the other side of it, I could see, having been in other rooms when things like that would happen, Like, man, he's like getting frustrated. He's getting frustrated over here. She's getting frustrated. It's like, oh, like, yeah, because they got a million things on their mind, and they
Yeah.
did hear it. They did hear it. They have heard. They are listening. You know,
That
they
is
are
actually
listening.
for real though. Sometimes from my perspective in
Yeah,
a
tell me.
room, it's like showrunners get so many things thrown at them, so many pitches. You
Yeah,
really wonder, did they hear my pitch, which was
yeah,
brilliant?
yeah,
That could change the trajectory of this entire show. And it's
yeah,
like, yeah, of course you forget from that position that they're taking in a ton of information,
yeah,
and you should be really cognizant of the machine that's going on around
yeah.
us. You
You know,
know? Yeah.
absolutely. And like, and you know, it's like at the end of the day, like the stories we're putting together as a room are the foundation of what this whole show is. So like, I not only am I listening, I'm eager to solve the problem. I'm eager to get that great idea. So I, with everything that's going on, it's like I don't have a production meeting if we don't get the right story. And so my ears were always in tune with what was being said, and I would always hear it. And I think, you know, on Insecure, both Issa and Prentice were just very good listeners and just very good at I mean, honestly, every showrunner, but I think Insecure was right before Grand Cru. So it's just a really awesome to see them work. And sometimes I would send them emails like on the weekend, be like, hey, I was just thinking about this, blah, 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 blah. Issa would, you know, respond, be like, oh, thank you for these pitches. Yeah, let's talk about this on Monday. And then sometimes it'd be like, cool, thanks. Thanks. You know, you know what?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I think that's what they want, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you pitch it, you put it out there, and you know, whether it be in the room or a side thought that I just send to both of them in the evening, they always read it. And sometimes it'd be like, yeah, let's have a conversation about this. And sometimes it's like, keep thinking, really appreciate that. You know what I mean? And you can't really take it personally because they all, no one knows more and has a sense for the rhythm of what the show needs more than the two of them, and
Yeah.
especially Issa with her show. So it's like, yeah, so it's one of those things where yeah, I always I would always hear it. I would always hear it.
Right.
I would always hear it. Always hear it. Yeah.
I love it. So you've had the rarefied experience of getting a TV show on the air.
Yeah.
And now your show has come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, like, what is the afterlife like?
Yeah.
You know, like, what is life like after you've gotten your show and now it's gone?
Um,
Sadly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, man, that would have been tight if we
Of
did.
course.
Man, you know, season 3,
I know.
we were about to, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
I'm
we're, we're
sad.
about to we're about to get
Yeah,
busy
yeah,
season 3.
of
Yeah,
course.
um, yeah, yeah. So it was during the strike, so it was weird. And I was about to go pick it at Disney, and I got a text from Dan that was like very ominous, and I kind of knew what it was. And then he called. He's like, "Hey, so you know, this isn't a good news call. You know, folks at NBC are going to be calling you, and we didn't get a season 3." Took the call from them. They're very kind. You know, they, you know, as far as what was said to me, they love the show, but you know, it's a business, and more people got to be watching it for you know to justify spending that money on it. And so, I honestly, the real of it is I actually felt there's a weird relief.
Yeah, yeah,
And I got to contextualize that because I just finished saying I wanted to do more, but like just knowing whether or not you're just in this limbo, you know, and you know, our time slot moved. There's just a lot of things where it was like, man, it was all feeling a little like, man, we're just like the underdog. We just felt like an underdog show on a network, you know? And so, I think just knowing what the fate was finally was a relief. And then, you know, I think, and this is just another thing, like creatively, you know, when I was in New York, I would do these shorts, and I'd rent out the Soho House and then fill the theater with my friends, and then you know they'd all be like, "Oh, you did a thing" or whatever. Having a show out at this scale, is probably one of the pieces of creating a showrunning that nobody prepared me for. Were like folks that I will never meet ever love this show, really love the show. Folks I will never meet and who don't know me hate the show. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and we talked about this. We talked about this at
Yeah.
Covell. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you helped me on the journey towards just being like, oh, like your creativity, it's gonna be for some people and not for other people, and that's kind of tight. That's kind of tight when you are when you are carving out an audience. And so, I struggled more when the show was on air than when the show got canceled, because, you're creative. You want everyone to love your thing. It's not a realistic thing, especially in this day and age. You know what I mean? And so there was the relief of just having an answer, but then there was the relief of like, oh, all these people just came out of the woodwork and were like, yo, that was my shit. I really love this show. And so in a weird way, it was like, oh, and I knew there were a lot of people that loved the show, but like, it was like that week that we got canceled was like overwhelmingly positive.
I love it.
From people in the industry and outside of the industry. And so in that way, I was like, 2 seasons of a show, like, in the UK, that's all you get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
you do 6 episodes for 2 seasons, and then and then you're kind of just that's what you do. So it was actually fine. Like it was I was already on like in therapying and just really coming to a place of peace with having my creativity out at that scale. And so by the time the show got canceled, I was in a good spot mentally, and was like, oh, like, and also the way we ended season 2, I think there was a little bit of like, if this is the end, I want to leave the door open for season 3, but I want to package it in a way where if people run into the show in the future, you can watch these 2 seasons and feel like you watched a complete piece. And so in that way, I think we designed season 2 in a way that kind of protected us for a season 3 if we got it, and also protected us creatively if we didn't, and we did it, and I'm okay with that. So that's kind of where my head was at.
Damn, you're so even keeled about this. I didn't even think about the idea that like when your show is out, it's like, do people like my stuff on a large scale? Like I didn't even think about that and how that might affect my, my self-esteem and my, feelings by my work.
It was wild. I just wasn't, the show running, like the managing, all that stuff. It's like, I think I was well equipped for that. It was really the after. I was like, oh, I need to, and there was a lot of good stuff being talked about, but it's like, what you focus on a lot of times is that one person who's like, you're not black enough.
Yeah.
Black people didn't write this show. A bunch of white people wrote this show. I'm like, what? And then it's like, and then you start searching for it. And then it's like, and then I was like, okay, I'm not being healthy about this. This was always my North Star, getting a show on the air, and I did it. And then it happens. And in Rick Rubin's book, he talks about creative journey and just making it, and then accepting that if it's the thing you wanted to make, it doesn't really matter what the response is. But I was on my way to that place. I wasn't there yet, And so I was just like, man, people don't understand what a lot of people don't understand what we're trying to do with this show. It's like, you look at hangout shows, they're silly, they're goofy. I want black people to be silly and goofy. Like, that's,
course.
you know what I mean? And so all that to say, it's like, Omari, who was my assistant at the time, I got off of Twitter and then had him run my Twitter for when the show would air. And then I left the city for 6 weeks just to get my mind right.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. That's so messed up because, first of all, so subjective, really, it is black people writing the show, and some black experiences run the gamut, and we know that, and yet it still affects on a deep level. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm at a place now where it's like, I'm season 2. I was more prepared because I got to work through that angst of having something out at that big of a scale, and then it's just like, that is. When you create, it is not going to be for everybody. And again, like, I think I was in like on the back end of it when we talked that one time over like Homestay at Covell, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it was helpful for you to just have some. Honestly, it was helpful as somebody who worked on the show for you to be like, this shit is tight, like, and people like this show. If they don't like the show, that's kind of tight too. That they watched it, like
They have
they
an
tuned
opinion
in,
about it.
they got an
Yeah.
opinion about it. It's better, that's better than it being so off the radar that they don't even care to tune in. And so conversations with folks like you, conversations with my therapist, and then just the realization that like, and I said this at the dinner that we had
Mm-hmm.
up in the hills or whatever. It's like having a show where we all get along, we're all friends with each other. We're breathing rare air, and so that was not lost on me. So I was really thankful when we were working that we got to be doing what we were doing for a network TV show. I thought that was really rad, and so that perspective, along with I just had to get used to it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
100%.
I think if and when I get another show, I'll be more equipped to just I won't have to anticipate the types of reactions.
Yeah.
Just knowing that that's just the world we live in now, and that's just the nature of the internet and just the nature of things. So
That's so interesting because I feel like as an employee of the show, I was so, insulated from that. Like that was completely not my experience at all. And
yeah,
that's so interesting that that was your experience. And of course, it's your show, so you care a lot about the reception of the show.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I couldn't have imagined that, yeah, this show is a reflection of my humor and me and my
Yeah,
ideas. And if it's, rejected in any way, it's of course really hard not to take that personally.
exactly. Like the show
It's
is
extremely
about
hard.
me
Yeah.
hanging out with my
Yeah.
friends at a wine bar. So somebody's like, "You're not black enough." I'm like, "What the fuck? What the fuck you say? Fuck you over here. Fuck you over here."
Of course. Of course. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just like, wow, yeah, not my
yeah.
experience. I had a blast.
It was so fun. It was so
Yeah.
fun. Yeah,
And
me too.
everyone I talked to was a fan. You know what I mean? So it's like, but
Yeah,
anyway, what a wild
yeah.
experience.
And I think a lot of that is
Yeah,
again just not being used to the scale
of
and being in
course.
that position for the first time. It's just like, oh, I just wasn't ready for it.
I,
And so, but
of
I had a
course.
blast,
Yeah.
making the show, and yeah,
Here's the other thing that you did that I
yeah,
thought was really amazing. Was similar to Issa and how she brought a lot of newbies
yeah,
into the industry, gave a
mm-hmm.
lot of people agency and you know this opportunity to do things that they hadn't done before. You very much did that on the show.
Mm-hmm.
You gave people their first directing
Mm-hmm.
gig. You gave people I mean, that was my first time being like a supervising producer, and like
Mm-hmm.
it was the first time I was like really running a room. Like you let
Mm-hmm.
me run a room. you
Great.
like
Mm-hmm.
you trained everyone basically to do everything essentially. Like you
Mm-hmm.
really like were really aware and intentional about the experience that we were having as individuals and giving us opportunities on the show. And you really treated it like this might be the last one, homie.
Yeah,
Everybody got to get it. You know what I mean? That's how
yeah,
you really were.
yeah,
And my thing is like, because it's a multi-million dollar machine, because you have so much pressure from the top, I always am like, I'm afraid to like,
mm-hmm.
give somebody a shot, who's
Mm-hmm.
never done it before or whatever.
Yeah,
But I'm really wondering how you navigated that because it's your first show,
yeah.
like it's a lot of pressure. How do you double down and become intentional about giving people their shot, giving people their first shot?
Yeah, um, it's not as to me. It's not that complicated because I think my friends are the best. I
So I'm a
think,
punk. I'm scared because I'd be like,
yeah,
will you mess this up?
no,
Because you were
yeah,
super
no,
confident in everybody.
nah. I knew it. I mean, look, it's like top to bottom, right? So we got you, David Phillips. These are all people I know.
They are.
So it's like not only people that I know are very skilled. If we're just talking about the room, these are people that are working on a show that is the conceit of which is about my life. So if you know me, the better off we are. I think, and so when it came to hiring, I mean, you had experience in like, you know, Lamar and David, people like that had experience. But for the people that didn't have a lot of experience, still really fucking talented people who had accomplishments in their own right. You know, whether it be at the theater or whether it be with features and stuff like that. And so to me, it's what I always wanted to do. But to me, it wasn't doing favors. It was like, I believe this is going to be the best alchemy to make the best version of what this show is. And Universal and NBC were down for that. And as far as like giving people their first like writer's room, staff writer, like that's, to me, that's part of being a showrunner. That's a part of the job. Like, you know, there's a version of reality on a show where if you get a multiple seasons, that's what you want. You want to bring somebody in at a staff writer level, have them climb the ranks, and then by the time you're done with that show, they're mid-level, they're high level, they know what to do, you're giving them the training, but then also they're just so good for the show because they cut their teeth on that show. And so there's a selfish aspect to it too, where it's like, I think it's important to give that learning, but that learning is also really, really good for the show. If you think about the show long-term with a long-term vision, which is, to me, it's like when you get the show, it's like, yeah, plan for the future, you know, plan as if, and then, you know, we put on, directors too. And again, these are people that are just super talented. And I think also, you know, the industry, needs to keep growing when it comes to representing people of color. And so it was not hard for me to have conversations with Universal and NBC and say, okay, y'all haven't heard of Jarrett Conaway, but I've known this guy since 2002. He's a phenomenal director. He has no network credits yet, but I'm telling you, he's going to knock this out of the park. And I think it's not a good look if the answer is no. And it's like, okay, so what person of color should we hire? And they're all booked. They're all busy because there's not enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so all of a sudden, Jarrett does 2 episodes of Grand Crew, and what happens? He knocks it out of the park. And we have examples like that throughout the disciplines and departments when it comes to the show. And it was something that was really important to me. And you know, both Universal and NBC were great partners in that capacity when it came to my desire to. I mean, honestly, put people on, you know?
I love it. We're going to wrap up soon. So okay. I kind of want to just ask about like the fact that we are in a transitionary, I think, period in the industry. Yeah. You know, we're watching the business models change. We're just watching things change.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to get a sense of like, what's your read on the industry right now? And what do you think that writers can do to, I guess, live their best creative lives, work as much as possible in what we are looking at right now?
Well, it's tough to say right now. I think in the near term, I think that things feel very quiet right now. You know, February 2024, things feel. Ooh, sorry. Hey, are you there?
You're still here.
This is Universal. Sorry.
They're calling you. That's funny. As you're like, the business is slow. Oh, Hollywood's calling me. Yeah.
So I think things feel really quiet right now.
Yeah.
but I think that by the summer, things are gonna. It seems like the stuff that was like about to be popping before the strike, that's what's happening right now. And so as far as buying and think like new things being like staffed and stuff, I feel like the summer is going to be the time, hopefully. So that's kind of my read on it. I think also, you know, there's a ton of streamers, there's a ton of platforms and stuff like that. It does feel like that was is a bit of a bubble. So I think there's going to be a lot of like consolidations, you know, like whether it be Max joining whatever, or, you know, Warner Paramount joining whatever. I think those might start consolidating more. And I think as far as like my thoughts on how to like live your best creative life. I think what I'm trying to do is just like um, kind of treat it like we did in New York, you know, where it's just like, all right, well, there's not a lot happening right now, but I got this idea for a movie, so I'm going to make that a priority this year. And I think as the jobs come up, I think right now, I think we were in a time when there were just a lot of shows, and I think it was. I think it's always good to be picky. Like, don't work on a show that like you feel like violates your beliefs as a person. But to me, right now, it's like get money, like get the job. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it's true.
If like get that job, stash away the money so you can create your own stuff, and without compromising your integrity. It's like part of me is like, you get that work. If you got an opportunity to work, take it, and then save your money. I've always lived pretty financially below my means, even when I was in advertising, because I just feel like in this industry, like you can go years without working. You can just go years without working, and you can be a really good writer. And so I'm always kind of prepared for that reality. And so honestly, when the strike hit, I was like, thank goodness I save money, because it's like you just never know out here, you know. And so I think that would be my financial kind of advice to your what you mentioned
Listeners.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then creatively, I just I'm just gonna try and make my own shit. I think I'm releasing some music like that just feels good, while we wait for things to kind of pick up from an industry perspective. That's kind of where my head's at.
100%. 100%. Do you have anything else to offer to writers who are hustling right now?
I mean, the obvious. Get all it takes is one good pilot. For someone trying to break in. And I think, I feel like the other day I was like looking at my website, and then it like took me down a rabbit hole of just old stuff that I made like back in like 2010 or something like that. And man, that stuff is bad. Not
I thought
bad.
you were going to say it was so good.
No.
It's so funny. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Bad, not bad, but just green. And it's like,
Yeah.
All I'm really trying to do year on year is just improve.
100%.
And so I think there's there could be like a weird feeling, and it's like that thing where it's like you compare yourself to other people that are maybe a similar age, but maybe have more or whatever. And it's like, they got to block that stuff out. And it's like when we were in New York, it's like, oh man, that person's on Herald Night. I'm not on Herald Night.
Yeah,
and everyone
yeah,
cares
yeah.
so much about this thing. And then they get on Herald Night, and then they're on a bad team. And then that team gets broken up. You know what I mean? So
100%.
it's like, it's weird. It's weirdly a microcosm of, I think, how you should treat the industry. It's like, it's all going to, if you're putting in the work, it's all going to happen when it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. And that's what even having had a show on the air, it's like, we got 2 seasons of a network show. That is my journey. Holy shit, that's crazy. Crazy. Not comparing that to anybody else's or what anybody else has accomplished. That is my story. And that's rad. You know what I mean? And like, cut out the intrusive thoughts that call it anything but dope, And so I think year on year, it's just like, just trying to improve and trying to grow. And I feel myself growing as an artist. I feel myself getting more comfortable in my skin. I think that's the key to success, just refining your voice. And when I think about it in terms of just trying to grow as a writer and creative, and less about, oh, I have to have this many shows or this work on this type of stuff, and I take that out of it and make it more internal. I think that has helped me over the past couple of years, not only stay sane, but be happier with all this dope shit that we've gotten to do over the past couple of years. So
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Phil Augusta Jackson.
Did it take away some of the mystery?
No. I don't. Who are you? No, it did actually. I really feel like I got to know you on this episode.
Good.
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you for having me. Shout outs to everybody on the that shouted me out on the previous episodes too. Those are all some of my favorite people. So
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. We finally got Phil, and he didn't disappoint. He did not disappoint, sir. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Come back for the next one. There's going to be more. Leave a review, leave a like, leave a subscribe. Don't play games with that. They're helpful to the podcast. So come with it. Slap a like, slap a subscribe. Okay. All right. I hope you enjoyed it, homie. Until next time, get out there, get to work.